Pack your stuff and get out, my parents yelled, so I did. 3 months later, Dad texted, "Where's the mortgage payment?" My reply ruined his day. There are moments in life that shatter your world, leaving you to pick up the pieces and rebuild. For me, that moment came when my parents, the people I'd sacrificed everything for, screamed those devastating words, "Get out and never come back." But the real shock? 3 months later, their desperate call revealed who truly needed whom, exposing a betrayal so profound it still takes my breath away. My name is Madison, I'm 26, and for years, I genuinely believed that being a good daughter meant absolute self-sacrifice. I worked 2 jobs, poured my paychecks into their mortgage, and swallowed every criticism, every judgmental comment, without a peep. I thought family loyalty was everything, a sacred bond, until that night. Growing up in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, I was always the responsible one. My dad, Richard, worked his fingers to the bone at a manufacturing plant, always smelling of motor oil. My mom, Patricia, battled chronic migraines, which often kept her home from her part-time bookkeeping job. Then there was Lucas, my younger brother, 3 years my junior, who just seemed to float through life, everything coming so effortlessly to him. I was the natural peacekeeper. When Lucas threw tantrums or broke rules, I was there, smoothing things over, making sure everyone felt heard. When my parents fought about money, which was often, I'd distract Lucas. Teachers loved me. I was the perfect student, all A's, always helpful. The first time I really contributed financially was my senior year of high school. Dad's hours were cut, Mom's health was worse. Nobody asked me, but I just did it. I got a part-time job at a grocery store, evenings and weekends. When I handed my parents that first paycheck, keeping just enough for gas, the sheer relief on their faces filled me with a pride so intense it almost hurt. "Mom," Patricia said, "Madison, honey, you don't have to do this," but she clutched that check like it was gold. "I want to help," I told her, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. "We're a family. We take care of each other." That became my mantra through college. While my friends worried about student loans and finding pocket money, I was sending money home. I picked a state school close by, lived in the cheapest dorm, and kept sending whatever I could. My parents would call to thank me, bragging to anyone who'd listen about their responsible, mature daughter. After graduation, moving back home felt like the most natural thing in the world. I'd landed a decent job as a marketing coordinator, and Lucas was starting his sophomore year at university. I figured it was a temporary thing, a rough patch. The mortgage was $1,847 a month. My parents approached me about taking it over, almost embarrassed. Dad explained his reduced hours, Mom's ongoing health. "Just until we get back on our feet," Mom promised. 6 months, a year at most. I agreed instantly, without hesitation. Slowly, steadily, I took on everything. Utilities, groceries, household expenses. To keep up, I got a second job, weekends at a clothing store. I was working nearly 60 hours a week, but seeing the stress strain from my parents' faces, it made every exhausting day feel worth it. My life became a relentless ballet of responsibility. Wake at 5:30 a.m., quick workout, shower, coffee, primary job. Lunch breaks were for bills and errands. After work, grocery runs, picking up Mom's prescriptions, driving her to appointments. Evenings, I cooked, cleaned, and tried to pretend I had a social life. The validation was like a drug. Neighbors, extended family, everyone praised my selflessness. My parents glowed with pride, telling friends, "Madison has been such a blessing. I don't know what we'd do without her." Months bled into years, and that temporary arrangement became a permanent fixture, unspoken but undeniable. Lucas needed $400 for textbooks? I covered it. The family car needed $800 in repairs? My problem? Medical copays, appliance breakdowns, all defaulted to me. I kept telling myself, this is family. This is how love looks. While my friends traveled, dated, pursued dreams, I was building their foundation. My apartment fund became their emergency fund. My vacation savings, Lucas's textbooks. My retirement contributions, house repairs. And the pride? It seemed justified. My parents bragged, Lucas got his financial freedom, and I felt utterly indispensable. For the first time, my contributions mattered, tangibly. Looking back, the shift was so gradual, a creeping tide. But at the time, it felt right. I was the responsible one, the family's financial backbone. My identity became tangled with my ability to provide, to sacrifice. My worth was measured by how much I could give, how many problems I could solve. What I didn't grasp was how subtly gratitude transforms into expectation, until one day, it just vanishes. The change in their attitude began with small, unsettling comments. During a Sunday dinner, Mom mentioned a coworker's daughter, 24, engaged, got her whole life figured out. She glanced at me meaningfully. Some girls know how to balance career and personal life. It stung. A few weeks later, Dad commented on my schedule. Madison, all work and no play makes for a pretty dull life. When's the last time you went on a date? I'd been on 2 dates in a year, both cut short because I was utterly exhausted. How could I explain I barely had time for sleep, let alone romance? I'm just focused on my career, I'd say. But then Mom, with a tone I'd never heard, said, that's what worries us. You're 25, living at home with no social life. It's not healthy. The irony, the sheer hypocrisy, was suffocating. I was living at home because I was paying their mortgage. I had no social life because I was working 2 jobs to cover their expenses. Somehow, my sacrifices had been twisted into personal failings. The criticism escalated. Family dinners, once sacred, became showcases for Lucas. His college friends, his internships, his social life, my parents hung on his every word. My work achievements? That's nice, honey, Dad would say, instantly pivoting to Lucas or Mom's day. I became a background character in my own family story. My contributions only mattered when a bill was due. My thoughts, my dreams, my experiences? Apparently, nobody cared. The comparison game became unbearable. One dinner, Mom spent 20 minutes gushing about Lucas's girlfriend, so well-rounded, really going places. Now that's a girl who knows how to make the most of her opportunities, she concluded. The message was loud and clear. Unlike me, this girl was living correctly. She wasn't trapped in a cycle of work and endless responsibility. When I tentatively suggested cutting retail hours to focus on my primary job, the reaction was brutal. Well, nobody forced you to take on so much responsibility, Mom said, her voice cold. You made these choices yourself. Technically true, yes. But it utterly ignored the why. I chose to help out of love, out of loyalty. To hear it thrown back as my personal burden, my mistake, felt like a profound betrayal. Dad started making snide remarks. I bought a much-needed new jacket after months of saving, and he commented about some people having money to throw around. I mentioned a small vacation with my friend Emma, and he openly wondered about people who could afford to be irresponsible with their finances. This was soul-crushing. I was meticulous with money, yet I was being painted as frivolous. Meanwhile, Lucas blew money on video games, nights out, and spring break trips without a single raised eyebrow. His expensive new laptop was an investment in his future. My $10 book? Unnecessary spending. They started treating me less like a daughter and more like a paying tenant. Family plans were made without me. When they decided to rearrange the living room, they didn't ask for my input, despite me spending my evenings there and, paying for the house. It's our house, Mom said. That possessive pronoun felt like a slap. The emotional distance widened. They stopped asking about my day, stopped praising my work. The warm appreciation was replaced by a grudging tolerance, as if my presence was an inconvenience. The most painful realization? They seemed to be actively encouraging me to leave. Comments about independence, suggestions I was too comfortable at home. I started to question everything. Had I misunderstood? Was I truly a burden? Was I imposing myself? These seeds of doubt would soon grow into a thorny forest of confusion and hurt. The tension in the house was thick, suffocating. I kept telling myself it was temporary, external stress. But deep down, I feared the truth. They simply didn't want me around. The breaking point arrived when they announced plans to redecorate. They'd saved up, they said, showing me magazine clippings. My heart sank when I realized what saved up meant. They expected me to fund the $3,500 renovation, while being completely excluded from any design decision. "We've already picked everything out," Dad explained. "We just need you to cover the cost, since you're so good with managing money." The casual assumption, the audacity, felt like a physical blow. When I dared to ask for input, Mom snapped, "It's our house, Madison. We've lived here for 28 years. I think we know what we want." That R again. Still, I agreed, hoping a happy house meant a peaceful one. Around the same time, a huge opportunity came up at my primary job, a promotion. It meant more training, longer hours initially, but a significant salary increase. Everything I'd worked for. It would require cutting my retail job. I mentioned it at dinner, expecting celebration. Instead, Dad's voice was heavy with accusation. "So, you're planning to abandon your family responsibilities for your career?" "It's not abandoning anything," I protested. "It's advancement, which would ultimately benefit everyone." "Sounds pretty selfish to me," Mom cut in. "We depend on that income, Madison. You can't just decide to make less money." There it was. I wasn't their daughter pursuing a dream. I was an income source, threatening their profits. Then Lucas came home for spring break. While I was clocking 60 hours and funding house renovations, he casually mentioned Mom and Dad helping with an expensive trip to Cancun with his fraternity brothers. "It's important for networking," he said. I watched them hand him $800 for what was essentially a party vacation. The double standard was so blatant, it screamed. The final catalyst was Emma's visit. I was so isolated, I rarely saw friends. Her visit was a lifeline. She noticed everything. At dinner, my parents lauded Lucas while barely acknowledging my work. When I mentioned a successful marketing campaign, Dad changed the subject to Lucas's internships. "Madison has been such a support to this family," Emma tried, redirecting attention. "It's amazing how she manages 2 jobs and still helps with everything." Silence. Deafening silence. My parents exchanged glances. Lucas suddenly found his plate fascinating. That evening, Emma pulled me aside. "I need to ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer," she said gently. "Do you feel appreciated in this house?" The question hit me like a physical punch. I stammered, "Of course, they're my family." "That's not what I asked," she pressed. "Do you feel appreciated? Do they treat you like someone they're grateful to have, or like someone they expect things from?" Her words burrowed deep, planting doubts I couldn't shake. That night, I lay awake, replaying months of interactions. When had they last thanked me? Asked about my dreams, my happiness? When had they treated me like a daughter, not a resource? The most devastating blow came 2 days after Emma left. I was returning from grocery shopping when I overheard my parents talking in the kitchen, oblivious to my return. "I wish Madison would just move out already," Mom said. "She acts like she owns this place just because she pays some bills." Dad agreed. "She's becoming a burden with all her opinions, so moody and difficult. Maybe we should encourage her more directly to find her own place," Mom suggested. "She's 26. It's not normal." I stood frozen in the hallway, grocery bags digging into my hands, as my world imploded. The people I had sacrificed everything for saw me as a burden. The family I had supported wished I would disappear. That night, I made a decision. I was going to have a conversation about boundaries, about respect. I just had no idea it would explode into something that would destroy everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. I spent 3 days meticulously planning. I wrote down key points, practiced, tried to anticipate. I genuinely believed honest communication could fix us. Sunday dinner. Lucas was home. I cooked my favorite pasta, set the table nicely, tried to create a calm atmosphere. "I'd like to talk to you all about something," I began, my voice steady. "I've been feeling some tension, and I think we should address it." The reaction was immediate, chilling. Dad crossed his arms. Mom's face contorted into an expression I'd never seen, pure annoyance. "What kind of tension?" Dad asked, already defensive. "I feel like I've been walking on eggshells," I continued, carefully. "I love this family, and I want to help, but lately, nothing I do feels appreciated. I want us to talk about how we can communicate better and make sure everyone feels valued." "Valued?" Mom laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Madison, we've given you a roof over your head for 26 years. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, paid for your education, and you're sitting here talking about feeling undervalued. Her words took my breath away. This wasn't the script. I'm not talking about the past, I said, struggling to stay calm. I'm talking about now, how we interact as adults. I feel my contributions aren't appreciated. Your contributions? Dad's voice rose. What contributions? You mean paying some bills, Madison? That's called being an adult. That's called taking responsibility for yourself instead of freeloading off your parents forever. Freeloading. The word hit me like a physical blow. 2 jobs. 2 years paying their mortgage. I've been paying your mortgage for 2 years. I choked out, my voice starting to shake. I pay for groceries, utilities, Lucas's textbooks, car repairs, medical copays. How is that freeloading? Nobody asked you to do that. Mom snapped. Those were your choices, Madison. You decided to take on all that responsibility and now you're trying to use it to control us. Control you? I was genuinely bewildered. How am I trying to control anyone? You act like you own this place. Lucas chimed in, speaking for the first time, and his betrayal cut deeper than anything my parents had said. His education, partially funded by me. You have opinions about everything. You act like we owe you something, and you make everyone feel guilty whenever they spend money. I don't understand, I whispered, tears blurring my vision. I thought I was helping. I thought we were a team. A team? Dad stood up, his face flushed with anger. Madison, you're 26 years old with no life, no boyfriend, no friends, living in your parents' house and acting like a martyr because you choose to pay bills instead of building your own life. Every word was a knife, aimed at my core, my entire existence. You want to know the truth? Mom stood too, her voice cruel. You're selfish, Madison. You hide behind this family responsibility nonsense because you're too scared to live your own life. You use money to make yourself feel important and necessary because you don't have anything else going for you. You're manipulative. Dad added. You've made yourself so involved in our finances that we feel guilty for making any decisions without you. That's not love, Madison. That's emotional blackmail. I tried to defend myself, to explain that every contribution was out of love, freely given, but their attacks drowned me out. We think you're pathetic. Mom's voice was sharper, colder. Your entire identity revolves around being needed by your family. You don't have hobbies, interests, or goals that don't involve us. It's unhealthy and frankly, it's exhausting. You make everyone walk on eggshells. Lucas piled on. We can't enjoy anything without feeling like we have to justify it to you. We can't make plans without considering your schedule. We can't have conversations without you inserting yourself into every decision. I don't do that. I protested weakly, but a flicker of doubt, planted by Emma, sparked within me. Had I? You absolutely do. Dad roared. And we're tired of it. We're tired of feeling guilty for living our own lives in our own house. This is my house too. I blurted out, the words more forceful than intended. I pay the mortgage. I pay the bills. I have a right to be involved. The silence was deafening. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't decipher. Actually, Mom said slowly, that's exactly the problem. You think paying bills gives you ownership? You think contributing money makes you entitled to control our decisions? That's not how family works, Madison. Then how does family work? I asked, confused, broken. Because I thought it meant supporting each other and being grateful for help when times are tough. Family, Dad said, his voice ice cold, works when everyone respects boundaries and lives their own lives instead of trying to control others through financial manipulation. Manipulation. After years of sacrificing, giving up my own life, my own dreams, they were accusing me of manipulation. Fine, I said, standing up. If that's how you feel, maybe I should just leave. I expected protests, apologies. I expected them to realize they'd gone too far. Instead, they exchanged another look. And Mom spoke words that would echo in my mind forever. Actually, yes. Maybe you should. You're 26, Madison. It's time you learn to live independently, instead of hiding behind family obligations. The room spun. They weren't just letting me leave, they were encouraging it. You want me to leave? I barely got the words out. We think it would be best for everyone, Dad said. You need to build your own life instead of living vicariously through ours. And we need space to be a family without feeling like we're being watched and judged all the time. Lucas nodded. That final betrayal felt like the coffin nail. You're ungrateful. Dad shouted when I didn't respond immediately. Get out and never come back. We don't need your guilt trips or your money anymore. The words rang in the silence. My entire family had just banished me. I scanned their faces for regret, hesitation. Nothing. Only relief. They wanted me gone. Okay, I said, my voice quiet, calm. I'll leave. And for the first time, I meant it. That calm acceptance seemed to surprise even me. They expected me to break down, beg. Instead, I simply nodded. I'll pack my things. My heart hammered, but my steps were steady as I walked to my childhood bedroom. It looked the same. Textbooks, photos with Emma, the lavender comforter. But it was all alien now. I pulled out suitcases, packed methodically, essential clothes, documents, laptop, a few sentimental things. I left furniture, books, appliances. Those belonged to a life I was no longer welcome to live. The most surreal part? The silence downstairs. No one came. No apologies. Just the low murmur of conversation, occasional laughter. As if nothing had happened. As if their daughter had not just been banished. Lucas actually came upstairs as I was loading my car. Need help with anything? He asked, casual as if I were just moving out normally. I've got it, I said, not trusting my voice. He carried my computer bag, made small talk about the weather. His normalcy was more painful than hostility. I left my house key on the kitchen counter. My parents were in the living room, visible through the doorway. They didn't acknowledge my departure. The front door closed with a finality that squeezed my chest. Emma welcomed me into her apartment, no questions asked. That first night, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every brutal word. I kept waiting for my phone to ring, an apology, an explanation, anything. It never rang. The first few weeks were raw. I cried randomly in grocery stores, seeing pasta sauce that reminded me of family dinners. At work, when colleagues asked about weekend plans. At night, in Emma's quiet apartment, the absence of familiar sounds was like a phantom limb. But then, something unexpected happened. For the first time in years, I had money left over. Without the mortgage, the utilities, groceries for 4, the constant emergencies, my paychecks actually covered my expenses, with room to spare. I bought organic groceries without guilt. Replaced worn-out clothes. Even bought coffee from the shop near my office. These small luxuries felt almost shameful at first, like a betrayal of my ingrained financial austerity. My work performance soared. No more early departures for mom's appointments, no calls during meetings about household crises. I could focus, attend networking events, pursue professional development. My manager noticed. You seem different, she said. More confident, more engaged. Keep it up. Emma gently suggested therapy. Dr. Chin introduced me to concepts I'd never heard: parentification, codependency, emotional manipulation. It sounds like you took on adult responsibilities very young, she explained. That can create unhealthy family dynamics where your value becomes tied to what you provide rather than who you are. I finally understood. My family's treatment wasn't a sudden shift, it was the ugly fruit of years of unhealthy patterns. They'd gotten used to my support without reciprocal emotional care. I had enabled their dependence, sacrificing my own growth. 3 months passed. No contact. I built a new life, new routines, friendships, hobbies. Painting class, book club, even a few dates with a colleague who made me laugh. My apartment was small, but it was mine. I chose the furniture, the colors, the music. I cooked for myself, watched movies I wanted to see. The independence was intoxicating. I'd forgotten what it felt like to live for myself. I started saving. A vacation to Europe, a graduate degree, a down payment on my own house. The most surprising thing? How little I missed the constant drama and criticism. Without that immense emotional burden, I felt lighter, more optimistic than I had in years. I was building a life that was entirely mine. And I was genuinely happy. which made what happened next all the more revealing. 3 months and 2 weeks after I left, my phone buzzed. Dad's name. My stomach dropped. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. The message was brief. "Why haven't you paid the mortgage?" I stared at those 6 words, standing in the pasta aisle, the full implications washing over me. Not, "How are you?" or "We miss you." Just a demand for money. It screamed their true motivations. They didn't want their daughter back. They wanted their ATM back. I screenshot the message, sent it to Emma with the caption, "Apparently, I was never actually unwelcome, just temporarily inconvenient." Then, I crafted my response carefully. I thought I wasn't welcome anymore. My phone rang within 30 seconds. Dad's voice utterly changed. Gone was the anger, the righteousness. Now, panic. Desperation. "Madison. Thank God. We need to talk. There's been some misunderstanding." "What kind of misunderstanding?" I asked, calm, leaning on my shopping cart. "We didn't mean for you to actually leave permanently," he stammered. "We were all upset, saying things we didn't mean. You know how family arguments can get." "Actually, I don't," I replied. "Because in healthy families, people don't tell their children to get out and never come back unless they mean it." "Madison, please," he pleaded. "We love you. We miss you. This whole thing has gotten way out of hand." The declaration of love, so hollow, so perfectly timed with their financial woes. "How are things going financially?" I asked, already knowing. The pause. Long uncomfortable. "It's been challenging," he admitted. "We've fallen behind on some payments. The bank sent us a notice about foreclosure proceedings." "What about the money you saved by not having me around?" I pressed. "All those groceries I wasn't eating, utilities I wasn't using, space I wasn't taking up?" "It's not that simple," he insisted. "Your income was. We had adjusted our budget based on your contributions." Translation: they'd spent 3 years living beyond their means, knowing I'd cover the shortfall. "Can I talk to her?" I heard Mom's voice in the background. Then her forced sweetness. "Honey, we've been so worried about you. You left so suddenly. We didn't want to intrude if you needed space." The blatant lie. They had my number, my work info, Emma's details. They could have reached me anytime. "We made mistakes that night," Mom continued. "Said things in anger. But you have to understand, we're family. Family works through problems together." "What problems are we working through?" I asked. "Well, this financial situation, for one thing," she snapped, dropping the pretense. "We're facing foreclosure, Madison. We could lose the house. Is that really what you want?" Classic emotional manipulation. Their crisis, my fault, my responsibility. "How much do you owe?" I asked. "We're 3 months behind," Dad said, back on the phone. $6,000 to get current. 3 months of mortgage payments they'd expected me to cover, despite telling me to disappear. "What happened to the money you've been earning and saving without me?" I challenged. Another pause. "Patricia's hours were cut," Dad said. "And Lucas needed help with an unexpected expense for school." Of course. Lucas needed money. And of course, his needs had been prioritized over the mortgage. "Madison," Mom's voice now pleading. "I know we hurt your feelings, but you can't punish the whole family because of one argument. This house has been in our family for 30 years. Lucas grew up here. This is our home." Our house she'd used to exclude me was now a family legacy I was obligated to save. "I'm not punishing anyone," I said, my voice steady. "I'm respecting your wishes. You told me to get out and never come back. You said you didn't need my guilt trips or my money. I believed you." We were angry. Dad protested. "People say things they don't mean when they're upset. You have to know we didn't want you to actually leave forever." "Then what did you want?" I asked. The silence stretched. They were trapped. They wanted me properly chastised, subservient, paying their bills without questioning, without expecting respect. They wanted my financial support without the inconvenience of treating me like a valued human being. "We want you to come home," Mom finally said. "We want our family back together." "What would that look like?" I challenged. "If I came back, what would be different?" "We'd treat you better." Dad rushed. "We'd be more appreciative. We'd make sure you felt valued." Empty promises. No real acknowledgement of how they'd hurt me, no concrete plan for change. "And if I can't move back right away?" I pushed. If I need time to think about it? Well, Mom interjected, we'd need help with the mortgage situation regardless. Even if you're not ready to move back, surely you can help us avoid foreclosure? We're still family. There it was. The real ask. My money, whether I was there or not. I looked around the grocery store, at people living their normal lives. I thought about my peaceful apartment, my growing savings, my thriving career, my newfound self-worth. I'll call you back, I said, and hung up. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I was going to say. And I was finally ready. I waited 2 days. Not because I needed more time to decide, but because I wanted absolute clarity about my boundaries. I had spent too many years reacting to their demands. Now, I would respond from a place of strength. Dad answered on the first ring. Madison. Thank God. We've been waiting. I've made my decision, I said, my voice calm, unwavering. I won't be moving back home, and I won't be helping with the mortgage or any other financial obligations. The silence on the line was profound. What do you mean? Mom's voice, sharp with disbelief, came through the speaker. I mean exactly what I said, I replied. I'm not coming back, and I'm not sending money. But we explained that we didn't mean what we said that night. Dad protested. We were upset. We want you to come home. No, you don't, I countered. You want my money. If you wanted me, you would have called 3 months ago to apologize. You would have reached out when you realized you missed me, not when you realized you missed my financial contributions. That's not fair, Mom said. We gave you space because we thought that's what you wanted. You gave me space because it was easier than admitting you were wrong, I corrected. And you only ended that space when you needed something from me. Muffled conversation in the background. Then Dad, Madison, I understand you're hurt, but we're facing foreclosure. We could lose our home. Surely your anger isn't worth more than your family's security. The predictable attempt to burden me with their crisis. I was ready. Your financial security is not my responsibility, I stated plainly. You told me I was manipulative for making myself necessary to your finances. You told me I was controlling for having opinions about money I contributed. You told me I was selfish for prioritizing my career advancement. So, I removed myself from your financial situation entirely. I respected your wishes. You're being vindictive, Mom accused. You're punishing us for one argument. I'm not punishing anyone, I replied. I'm protecting myself from being taken advantage of again. You spent 3 years accepting my money while criticizing my character. You made me feel guilty for every personal purchase while expecting me to fund your wants and needs without question. That's not a relationship I'm willing to continue. But we're family. Dad's voice now truly pleading. Yes, we are, I agreed. And families should support each other's growth, celebrate each other's achievements, and treat each other with respect. When did you last do any of those things for me? The question hung heavy, unanswered. They knew. We'll do better, Mom promised. We'll change how we treat you. Just help us through this crisis and things will be different. You had 3 years to treat me better when I was contributing to your household, I said. You chose to take me for granted instead. I'm not giving you another opportunity to do the same thing. What about Lucas? Dad asked, playing his trump card. He'll have to drop out of school if we lose the house. Do you want to ruin your brother's future? The emotional manipulation was so transparent, it was insulting. Lucas is 23 years old, I stated, completely detached. He can take out student loans like millions of other college students. He can get a part-time job like I did. He can learn to support himself instead of depending on family money for his lifestyle. That's cruel, Mom cried. He shouldn't have to struggle because you're holding a grudge. It's not cruel to expect an adult to be financially responsible for himself, I countered. It's not a grudge to refuse to enable a family that doesn't respect me. It's called having boundaries. The conversation dragged on for another 20 minutes, a relentless barrage of guilt trips, empty promises, and veiled threats. I listened with a newfound detachment. Finally, I ended the call with the words I'd been preparing for days. I spent 3 years being your ATM while you criticized and dismissed me, I said, my voice firm. I sacrificed my social life, my career advancement, and my self-worth to keep you comfortable. You didn't appreciate it then, and you only miss it now because you need money. I'm not coming back to be taken for granted again. Madison, please. Dad tried one last time. You told me to get out and never come back, I continued. You said you didn't need my guilt trips or my money. I respected your wishes then, and I'm respecting them now. Don't contact me again unless you have something to say that doesn't involve asking for money. I hung up and immediately blocked their numbers. The relief was immediate, overwhelming. For the first time in years, I wasn't responsible for anyone else's financial security, emotional well-being, or life choices. I was finally truly free. 6 months later, I got that promotion at work with a significant salary increase. I moved into a beautiful one-bedroom apartment with hardwood floors and a balcony. I started dating someone who cherished my ambition and independence. Emma and I finally took that vacation to Italy, something I never could have dreamed of while supporting my family. Most importantly, I learned to value myself the way I had always valued others. I discovered that my worth wasn't determined by how much I could sacrifice or how many problems I could solve for other people. I was valuable simply because I existed, because I was kind, hardworking, and thoughtful, not because I was useful. I never heard from my family again. That told me everything I needed to know about what I had truly meant to them. Through social media, I eventually learned they lost the house and moved into a smaller rental. Lucas transferred to community college and got a part-time job. My parents downsized their lifestyle significantly. I felt a quiet sadness for their struggles, but no guilt. They had made choices that led to their situation, and they would have to make choices to improve it. Those choices were not my responsibility. The most valuable lesson I learned was this: love should never require you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. True family supports your growth and celebrates your success, rather than exploiting your loyalty and taking your sacrifices for granted. I thought being a good daughter meant sacrificing everything. But I learned that being a good daughter means respecting yourself enough to expect respect in return. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices, because that's the only way they learn to make better ones. I'm not ungrateful for what my family gave me growing up. I'm grateful for the strength I found to recognize when giving became enabling, when love became exploitation, and when loyalty became self-destruction. Walking away from my family was the hardest thing I ever did. But it was also the moment I finally learned to love myself. Today, I'm genuinely happy and free, surrounded by people who value me for who I am rather than what I can provide. My worth isn't measured by how much I sacrifice, but by how well I honor my own value and maintain my boundaries. That's a lesson that changed everything for me. And I hope it might help someone else struggling with similar choices. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for listening.